Hi friends, I'm Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have another bookish video. It is my July wrap up. So in July I read 18 books. So I did even better than last month. Last month I did 16. This month I did 18 and I am so excited. I had so many great reads this month. Quite a few really high up there 5-star reads, especially with some spooky ones that I loved so much. And there were a couple of flops, but only a couple. Just two, and overall I'm really happy with the books that I read and how everything went. Today I'm going to go through all these books, kind of give a short synopsis, of course spoiler free, and let you know what I thought about them, if I recommend them, if you should give them a go. Mostly it is spooky stuff. There are a few a handful of like just general like literary fiction, some nonfiction in there as well. I think just one. By some, I mean a single nonfiction, which I'm happy about. I know it's always like a struggle for some of us to read some nonfiction in there, but I'm gonna go from the lowest rating to the highest rating, and I'm just doing this by stars. Here we go. Okay, first up we have my 2.5 star reads. This one, in Goodreads I gave 2.5 stars, but reflecting on it, I'm gonna just give it 2. It was not very good. That will be What Lurks Beneath by Ryan Lockwood. Now, this is a like deep sea creature. There's something beneath the water, kind of spooky novel in that way. It's written kind of strangely. The characters are pretty basic, but there are a few that are not my favorite. Like she has an uncle who honestly just really sucks and is a piece of crap person. And then we're doing all these things to kind of discover what is happening underneath the water and what is getting people. Like obviously we know right off the bat that there is a creature under there, a sea creature, and it has become blood hungry. So, and it's going after regular people. Now, the issue I have with this mainly, well, besides the cheesiness of it all, but the issue I had was that we are hearing the point of view of our main character, who is a woman, and she is I don't know if biologist is the right word, but I can't remember. But she does like scuba diving, like deep sea research, and she is on this mission trying to figure out what's down there. But we're hearing from her point of view while also hearing from the sea creature's point of view. And this is where it really bothered me, and I hated it. Like I hated that it did this. But we're hearing from the sea creature, so every time the sea creature was going to attack someone or go after a person, like we knew, like there was no suspense. Like it absolutely killed the suspense in that way, because you know, we would be like, oh, there's these people on the beach, like this couple on the beach, and they're in the water and they see something weird, but then it'll cut to the sea creature's point of view, and then the sea creature will just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. Like this isn't normally my normal kind of food, but I'm gonna go after this person. And so it just defeats the purpose of the whole thing. Like you knew what was gonna happen. It took away all the suspense. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog. He's literally running back and forth. But yeah, this was also in a vlog of mine, so I'm not gonna go any further into it. I've already gone too much into it. It's not even worth the time. But I have a camping vlog where I read a lot of like spooky books, and this is in there, and I go a little bit deeper into it on there. The ending was actually not that bad. I thought the ending was pretty fast-paced and took a little bit of a turn that I didn't see coming, but overall, big bummer, not great. I'm gonna give it 2 stars looking back. Okay, so next up we have The House in the Pines by Anna Reyes. Now I was really excited about this one, but I am giving it 2.5 stars, and it's a super bummer, but overall I was really disappointed about it. The synopsis of this is super interesting to me. I really like the idea of there's this person and 2 women have died just right in front of him, and we're like, has he just caused their deaths? What is there magic? Is there some like supernatural thing going on? Is there a haunting? Like trying to like decipher what's going on there and how these people died in front of this man. But our main character dated this man named Frank, and her best friend died right in front of him. And then I think it's like 7 or 8 years later, she sees a YouTube video, and this woman is sitting in a diner right across from Frank, and they're sitting there. They're not even really talking or anything. They're sitting there, and then she just pops over and is a goner. So she goes home to try to find out what was really happening. People just think that she is crazy. Like, her mom thinks that she's mentally unwell, so no one's really like believing her, which is kind of like, that's one of those tropes that really bothers me. I do not like whenever there's a story where no one will believe someone when they're telling them something is happening. That's like, it drives me crazy. And sometimes it works in the book's favor to where it does like add to like that tenseness, but in this one it was just frustrating and annoying. Like, obviously something is going on, and you know, when the twist happens and what we find out is happening, did I anticipate it? Not really, but you know, a couple chapters before that I did kind of figure it out. So I didn't, so it wasn't like a right off the bat thing. I was like, I think this is what's going on. But closer to whenever they told us what was happening, I had already figured it out. But aside from that, I do think that it's kind of unique, but also it was just like really anticlimactic. Especially the last 20%. I have a reading vlog where I talk about this too, where the last 20% was just like nothing happened, like nothing new added to this story really at all. So overall, a big bummer for me. The premise was so good, and actually I liked the beginning of it as well, but just did not execute very well, and I'm sad about it, but not my favorite. 2.5 stars. So those were my only 2 really flops. The next 16 books are all, you know, decent or amazing, so I'm really happy with that. But starting off with 3-star reads, I have A Botanist's Guide to Parties and Poisons by Kate Kavari. So this is a cozy mystery and a little bit of a historical fiction, but we have a woman who is the first like professor's assistant at this college. I want to say it's the 20s, somewhere in there. I always forget the time frames, but and she is new at this school and working for this professor, and we start out where she goes to like a dinner party with a lot of the staff and some of their families. One of the professor's wives gets poisoned, and we don't know who poisoned her. She is still alive, but she is like in a comatose state. So basically the book is her trying to find out what's going on. Her immediate professor that she works for, who is someone she's known all of her life really and is really close to, and you know, believes in strongly that he's innocent, but he has been put in jail at this point as the main suspect, and they believe that he poisoned this person. So it's really her trying to clear his name and finding out who actually committed this crime, and just the ins and outs, the dynamics of the school and the professors and scandals and fraud and lots of different elements. It was actually really fun. Overall, it wasn't super unique, but I did really enjoy it. It also has like a little bit of a hint of a romance in there, but it wasn't really overwhelming, and it did not take away from the main story. That's kind of like my issue with a lot of cozy mysteries, is that they put a lot of emphasis on a romance in there, and that's just not my kind of thing. And for me, it takes away from the real story and the real mystery. So I like that it didn't go too much into the romance there. This one definitely does have kind of like a summery vibe. The professor and our main character, she studies botany, so there's a lot about plants and the school and like gardens and things like that. It didn't go as much into that area in building the atmosphere as I would have wanted, especially being at a college where there's a greenhouse and like all this stuff. Like, I was really hopeful for the atmosphere, and it didn't build it quite as much as I wanted or anticipated. But when it comes to cozy mysteries, I feel like so many of them are very like winter forward. Like, it's something that I would want to read in fall or winter, but I think this is a great one for the spring summer time. It really does lend to like the seasonal reading there, and I appreciated that. I read it at the perfect time this year. But there is a good bit of talk about plants, botany, poisons, things like that. Some of them are real, some of them are fake, but overall I enjoyed that. I always think that that's kind of like a fun thing to learn about, even if it's you know, fictional. But overall, not bad. I would definitely give it a read if you like cozy mysteries. I mean, honestly, I'm not huge into this kind of book. Like, it's not typically my kind of thing, so you might like it a lot more. So I would definitely give it a try. It is a series, and I think that I might eventually read the next one if I'm looking for something that's just like easy, my brain doesn't have to think too hard kind of thing. And that's really when I enjoy books like this. Next up, we have Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. Now, this is another like cozy, wholesome read. It is super cute. There isn't a mystery in here per se, but there is a little bit of like some stakes going on with with our main character, and trying to save people in the town and, you know, her friend and things like that. And it is pretty much like a cozy, wholesome fantasy. Basically, our main character, she is a witch, and she has powers that she cannot control. So typically everyone in, you know, this fantasy world that have powers and that are witches and wizards have like easy control over their powers, and they can cast spells and do everything, you know, at their own wish or whim. But for her, she doesn't have control over her powers, so they kind of just like act out. She'll cast spells, she'll do things, and she will not mean to. The council of like witches and wizards or whatever come to her house, basically tell her, since she can't control her powers, that she can either choose to get rid of her powers entirely, or they can basically put a spell on her where whenever she casts a spell, it will physically hurt her. So it would hopefully deter her from like casting spells without her not like knowing or meaning to. And so from this happening, she gets really upset once they leave. She accidentally curses her dad, and he's very sick afterwards, and she's scared he is going to die. So she goes to one of her friends who is also on the council, and he says he will assist her in learning how to harness her power and bless her dad to heal him. And with that agreement, she also agrees that if he does help her do this, that she will give him all of her powers. And there's, you know, other things going on. There is a new potion that is making people really ill, and they don't know how to cure these people, and just like lots of different dynamics. There's lots of different dynamics, but there's, you know, some talks of potions and magical, whimsical things that's really fun and entertaining. Overall, it's really just wholesome and cozy, and it is called Flower Heart, so definitely great for spring, summer. Like whenever she accidentally does a spell, she will, like, flowers will just come up, and then each flower like means a different thing, and she'll like tell you, oh, this flower means this, or this means this. And I really like that, just similar to like the last book. I kind of like that dynamic of these kinds of fantasy mystery books. But overall, I liked it. Was it really unique? No, but was it fun and an easy read that was cozy, that I read in like a day? Yeah. So overall, it wasn't bad. It was good, not great. I gave it 3 stars. The next 3-star read I have is The Hunting Wives by May Cobb. Now this one was a little hard for me to rate because I had a really fun time reading this, but there are a lot of issues. Lots of issues with this book, I'm just gonna say. So basically we have this woman who is living suburban life. She is bored. She, you know, has a family, a kid, and she kind of left her big job to move to the suburbs and is doing like freelance work, and has kind of lost her purpose a little bit and has become bored. And she finds out that there's this group of women who get together, and it's kind of cliquey, like an adult cliquey group, and she wants to be in that group, especially like the main woman she's really infatuated by. And she does eventually get into this group, and you know, they kind of just, whenever they get together, they kind of just drink and party, and it's very strange kind of the dynamics, since, you know, they are older, I don't want to say old, but older with kids, and, you know, they go out and like act pretty wild. That aspect was kind of strange. And then there's also like some relationships in here that are bizarre. Now it does clarify like they are of age, but it doesn't even clarify that till near the end of the book. But like the whole book, I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. Like, I don't think that these guys are of age, but it does say that they are 18, but still I'm like grossed out by it. Does every woman in this suck? Yes. I like every single character. You're not gonna like them. They all are pretty crappy. And you know, they're all kind of making just horrible decisions. But overall, there are some twists in here that are surprising. What ends up happening is, you know, wherever they go party on this woman's farm, and meet up in their group, a girl does wind up dead. So, you know, now our main character, and they're all like in this murder, you know, investigation, like being questioned and things like that. And we're trying to figure out what has happened and what really happened to this person. And if someone in the group is to blame. There are some okay twists in here. Like there were some things that did surprise me a little bit. So I was happy about that. But you know, some of it was cheesy. Yes. Some of the twists were good. Yes. There were a lot of issues with the characters and their decisions that I had. So that was my main problem with it, I think. It was just kind of uncomfortable in that way. And I was very just weirded out by reading it. And I'm like okay with weird stuff, but I feel like this book was not trying. I don't know. But if I'm reading like extreme horror or something, I like expect that kind of stuff. But this is just like a, you know, like a suburban housewife thriller. So I was very confused, but I did have a good time reading it. I'm not gonna lie, but overall it wasn't my favorite. It had a lot of issues, so it gets 3 stars from me. Okay, so now we're going into my 3.5 stars. I just have a couple of them, but for the first 3.5 star read I have is The Laws of the Skies by Gregoire Courtois. That's French. But this is very much a horror book that is very dark and heavy. I went into it kind of expecting something different because the synopsis said that it was like Winnie the Pooh meets the Blair Witch Project, and in my mind I didn't think it was going to be as dark as it is because of the Winnie the Pooh part, but I understand why it said that, and I was just like thinking the wrong thing when I was reading the synopsis. Basically it reads very much like a fairy tale. It is about a camping trip, and we have like 2 adults on this camping trip, and I think there's, oh my gosh, I don't know how many kids, 10 or 12 kids. And you know, right off the bat in the synopsis it tells you that no one comes out alive. So I didn't read that far. I don't think I read that far in the synopsis because I didn't even like remember that or realize that. And then, which made the book way more shocking to me as I read along. But major trigger warnings here, a lot of very gruesome deaths. Like there are some gruesome, like super gruesome, like body horror, things with animals, spooky stuff. And, you know, especially when it pertains to kids. So be aware of that. And they are young kids, and they don't quite understand what's going on. And it's not that they don't quite understand, they totally don't understand. And when the first kill happens, I was like, oh gosh. And it wasn't even that it was that the person was getting hurt. It's more just like in your brain being like, these children are watching this. Like that's what was like haunting me so much about this. It was dark. It was definitely dark and heavy and made me sad. But I think it was okay in the scary category and in horror too. I think it was very successful at making me uncomfortable. Yes. Was I scared? No, I don't think I was really scared because most of the things that happened were things that as an adult we would know not to do, kind of thing. But since they are kids, they did not have that understanding or knowledge, and they would do these really stupid things in the woods that would end up getting them hurt or killed. So that's rough. I think the storyline was pretty good. Just, was I scared? Not per se. I was more just really uncomfortable and like emotionally like drained by this book, which sometimes, you know, with horror books that's the point. But overall the story in this was not my favorite. I was a little bit disappointed in especially the storylines pertaining to the adults, and overall it was not my favorite. I was a little bit disappointed by it and didn't love it. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Just simply because I wasn't scared, but I wasn't comfortable. But 3.5 stars is what I'm gonna give it. And you know, if you are interested in something, it's very much like what it says, like Winnie the Pooh meets the Blair Witch Project, because you know, in Blair Witch, they're in the woods, no one gets out alive kind of thing. It's very similar, but instead this is with children on a camping trip, and it definitely reads like a fairy tale like just the way that it's written, which adds to like the weirdness of it, which I did like that. But yeah, if you're interested in that, give it a go. You might like it more than me. Just sometimes things with kids I have a hard time with. My next 3.5 star read is The Puzzle Master, and I do have a reading vlog with this one, but essentially we have a character who was in a football accident when he was a senior in high school, and it caused him to have a brain injury that has made him into a savant, which actually is a real thing, I believe. But through this injury and becoming a savant, he is like amazing at solving puzzles, and for his job, he creates puzzles. And what happens is he comes in contact with a psychologist at this prison, and she reaches out to him because they have a inmate who, ever since she was first charged, I was like, what's the word? Charged with a murder, she has not spoken, has not said anything. And that's through the trial, through her time being in prison, and she's been in prison quite a few years at this point. And the only thing she would do is she would do puzzles, and then eventually she had written something about our main character and written his name and about his, like, said something about the puzzle. So essentially our psychologist is like, you know, this is the most, like, she's never written anything, she has not communicated, and she has written your name. Can you come, you know, meet and try to speak with this inmate? And you know, as the book goes on, essentially she wants him to solve the puzzle of this murder and who is to blame for it. And there are lots of layers here. My issue with this book is that it goes into too many places. At first we were like, oh, suspense mystery, and then there's like some of like a haunting horror part, and then there's like a supernatural part, and like a crime drama part, and like it just goes on and like keeps adding stuff in. And the first half of this book I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was really good and I was hooked. I really liked the first half, and then the second half it just totally lost me. It went off into too many different directions, and I was just like, God, are we really going here? I was like, and it was like I was exhausted by the end of it. I was like, I don't even care anymore. I cannot, like, I was just not invested, because it goes off into this like religious, similar to like how the Da Vinci Code, like a religious conspiracy like area, and which would have been fine if we hadn't already had like 5 other areas and genres that we had gone into. So and it sucks because there is one area where we see the inmates past, like we go into her past and like her time before the murders, and she's actually like house sitting at this really spooky like large estate, and there's lots of dolls and puppets. This person was a collector, and that it feels almost like a haunting at that time. And I was like, man, I just wish the whole book was this. Like I want to hear about this haunting. Like I really don't care about anything else. So I gave it 3.5 stars simply because the first half I loved, the second half not so much. You know, if you are looking for something definitely unique, give this a try, because this is unique and different. And the premise of it I did really enjoy, and there were parts of it that I loved. So I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't know if I would highly recommend it. I am a little torn. I definitely wouldn't just read this. Don't put this at the top of your list. That's what I'm saying. Don't put it at the top of your list. But like I would prefer to read The Hunting Wives again over this, like even some 3-star reads. But you know, sometimes when I'm rating things, like afterwards I'm like, yeah, that, like I might rate it a little bit higher, but it's something that's like a one and done kind of thing. So, but yeah, would I rate it again? 100% no. So that's my info I'm giving you. Take it as you will. Next up, we have another 3.5 star read, and it's My Last Innocent Year by Daisy Alpert Florin. Now, I did like a reading vlog that was mainly just like general, like contemporary lit, and this was in there about a woman who, at the very beginning of the book, she has a non-consensual sexual encounter with another classmate. She's in college. So, and you know, if that's something that, like, I mean, of course, trigger warning there, and it was something that I was like, I don't know if I want to read this, because I don't enjoy reading those kinds of topics a lot of the time. Like I definitely have to be in the right headspace. But I had this checked out I was gonna give it a go, and I did. And overall, that part of it was not super graphic or long or intense. So if it's something that does bother you, you might be able to read this one, because I did not have any issue reading it. So just letting you know about that there. But basically after this, we're just following her and, you know, her friendships, her school year, you know, what's going on with her professors, and, you know, she gets accepted into this one class that's very sought after, and it's a writing class. And basically the woman who is usually the professor of this class is not teaching it this semester because she is going through a divorce, and her divorce is with another professor at this school. So her husband and her both teach there. But she gets replaced for this semester by another professor, and our main character becomes infatuated with him. He also shows a lot of interest in her, and then they spark up a relationship, a very inappropriate sexual relationship. He's also married, so that's a bummer there too. But and the thing is like, her initial, you know, essay that happened, it doesn't really come into play a ton throughout the book. Like, it's inferred that, you know, she's probably making some of these bad decisions because of this event, but it doesn't play as much of a huge role in the story as I thought it was going to play. So that was kind of strange. I was invested in what was going to happen to our main character, but I could not relate to her at all. I had a really hard time connecting with the decisions that she was making, you know, despite everything. So that was strange. Obviously, the relationship with the professor is inappropriate, especially because he's married. I mean, they are both of age, but it's inappropriate. I do think that it romanticizes it a little bit, but also, like, I'm like into that kind of tea. So I was like, I'm kind of into this relationship. Like, I want to read about it. So, you know, I'm one of those people. But you know, the whole story as a whole was felt kind of like disjointed. You know, towards the end, there's like a weird mystery aspect to it that doesn't really make sense. And then, yeah, I don't know. Overall, it was just not what I was hoping it would be. But I didn't hate it. I did enjoy it. I think that there is some interesting commentary here, and it did take a weird turn that I didn't see coming. So that's one thing. Even though it was strange, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know this was gonna go there, but okay. So yeah, 3.5 stars. Good, not great. We're gonna go into my 4-star reads, and with these, I am not gonna go from worst to best. I'm just gonna go with all 4 stars and go through them in the order that I read them, because otherwise I don't even know how I could really rate them. It might take me a while. It'd be a little bit confusing. So I'm just gonna go into them in order that I read them. But here we go with my 4-star reads. Starting off with You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. I really enjoyed this one. It's really fast paced and has a lot of like summery vibes. So if you're still looking for like a summer horror to tie you over before we get really into spooky season, into the Burr months, I think this is a great one to read. I know it's been pretty popular, but basically we have a girl who works every summer at this camp, and this camp is like, it's not a normal summer camp. Basically it's a haunted house. So every night they put on like a haunted house that's like really intense, full contact, like you have to sign a waiver kind of thing, and you know, it's all done at this camp. And really, I mean, it sounds awesome, like I want to go to this so bad. But at this camp there was a horror movie filmed here, so it's kind of like legendary because of that. And you know, as the days go on, we're nearing the end of the season, and you know, some of the employees have disappeared. We don't know where they are, and then we find out that there's more sinister things going on, and some people are going to be killed. So it definitely turns into a slasher. I was very excited about the, you know, kind of unique take that this went into. I'm sure a lot of people didn't like this, but I thought it took a really interesting turn that made it different from most slashers. And overall, I thought it was spooky, creepy, really fast-paced and fun. I read this in one sitting. I sat down at like 6 p.m. one night, and I was, you know, just sat down and read it and finished it, and I loved every second of it. And I was not bored at all for like the next 6 hours. So, you know, it's definitely kind of a mix of Friday the 13th and Scream. It is definitely aware of, because they work at a haunted house, we have a character who loves horror movies. It's definitely aware of like what not to do and what to do during, like, if you're getting chased by a slasher villain. And I love that aspect of it. That's why I love Scream so much. But definitely give this a go. It's fun, great for summer. Love the camping woods aspect, and I love the ending. I thought it ended really well. I enjoyed it. Like, overall, I think it's a great read. 4 stars. Definitely give it a go. Next, I read something a little bit different. I read a book of poetry, and it is The Trouble with Poetry and Other Poems by Billy Collins. You know, this is a super quick read. I just read it in like an hour or two. But for someone that doesn't really read poetry, I did really enjoy this. I think it would be perfect if you like sit outside on a summer morning with a coffee and just like relaxing and reading this. I think that would be the absolute perfect time to read this book. There's a lot of poems in here with, you know, summery atmosphere, the flowers, you know, the sun and things like that. And I did really enjoy it. I thought it was great. Overall, was it my favorite thing in the world? No, but for poetry and me branching out, I did really enjoy it. And if you're looking for some more poetry to read, definitely give this a try. I mean, I was surprised by how much I liked it. Okay, our next 4-star. We have The Drowning Woman by Robin Harding. So I'm pretty sure I have this in a reading blog as well, but essentially we have a woman who is down on her luck. She has lost her job and she had some shady investors and they're after her, so she has left New York and traveled across the country, and now she's in Seattle, homeless, living out of her car and just working at a diner. She starts parking her car on the beach in this one nicer subdivision because she just feels safer there. And when she's there, like her first night there, she hears someone jump into the water and she realizes, oh my gosh, someone jumped in, I need to save them. And she does. But the woman that jumped in was pretty upset, doesn't want to be saved simply because she lives in a abusive household and she just wanted to. Once she does save her, they kind of spark this friendship, and as time goes on, we're having our main character kind of talking with this woman who's she wants to disappear. She wants to just leave, go to another country and escape this relationship in life that she's living. And she's looking for help from our main character. And as time goes on, we find out this woman isn't exactly what we think she is. What's going on here? There's like a deeper mystery going on. There's also some romance here that is kind of weird but plays a role in the story. And overall, it takes a turn, multiple turns that I did not see coming. Like, there were twists on twists on twists. Like, for sure, a twisty book. A lot was happening, especially once you hit that halfway mark. The last half is like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I definitely recommend this. I think this was really fast paced. There were so many twists. I really loved it being set in Seattle and just that area. And I was really, you know, dedicated to these characters. And it's kind of crazy because with some of them, it's like you love them, then you hate them and you feel bad for them. Then you're like, oh no, why do they suck? And then it's like there's lots of like juxtapositions here where like, I don't know what's going on and how to feel about these people. And overall, I thought it was a really great read. I give it 4 stars. And there were some cheesy, like, cliche parts in it, which is really why I give it 4 stars. But I think I read this in one sitting also. Yeah, I did. So I really enjoyed it. Fast paced. If you're looking for a thriller, like a new thriller, especially like with women characters as the main characters, definitely give this a go. I thoroughly enjoyed it and I highly recommend it. Next we have Night's Edge by Liz Corinne. I really enjoyed this one. This actually is a series, which is weird, but you know, and I didn't know that when I started it, so it is a series, but this first book wraps up really nicely to where it can be standalone. Like, I don't think I would need to read the rest of the series, but I probably will because I really enjoyed this one. But basically we have a character whose mom is blood hungry. There is this disease that has happened and she has the thirst for blood, for human blood. And you know, for years our main character has basically sat down every night drawn her blood so her mom can drink, and they try to live a normal life, but like no, she can't get close with anyone. Her mom can't go out at daytime. Like, it's a very interesting and unique take on vampires that I really enjoyed. I thought it was super smart and different, and that had me really excited about it. There's also like a sapphic romance in here that doesn't take away from the story. It definitely is part of the plot line, which I enjoyed. We also are hearing like dual timelines, so we're getting you know, present day, but also what happened when her mom first turned and first got sick, which I think that that's always necessary when there's these types of books. When there's some kind of sickness that someone has, I want to see what happened initially. That's like my favorite part of any kind of apocalyptic or zombie or anything. Like, I want to see the initial sickness and what happened at the beginning, so I'm glad that it does go into that. And then there is some good suspense here. I was curious what was going to happen. Her mom is just an awful person. It actually ends up being a really deep take on like relationships with parents, especially in like domestic abuse and like parental abuse, and I thought that it was written really well. I really enjoyed this one. I will definitely read the next book in this series. It's not out yet. I'm not sure when it comes out, but I'm looking forward to it. Also, it does read more YA than adult. Now, it wasn't like too much of a like childish writing, but I do think that if you were younger, you could definitely read this and wouldn't have an issue. Normally that would bother me, but with this one, it did not bother me at all. And I overall liked it. I liked the writing. I thought it was fun. Well, fun, but I thought the writing was totally fine and fit in with the story and our character, even though it was a little confusing because our character is older, and I was like a little bit confused about thinking like she's in high school or something, but she's not. So that's like the only issue I had with it. But overall, a great one. Give it a read. If you're into vampires, definitely give this one a read. It's very unique and different, and I appreciated that a lot. Next 4-star is Go as a River. Now this one, I also have in that reading vlog with my last innocent year, but it is essentially a coming of age story. We have a woman who, it's like back in the 40s, I want to say, and she is part of this family where all the women in the family passed away in a car wreck. So she is living on this farm, this peach farm in Colorado, with her dad, her brother, and her uncle. And she meets this man in town one day, and they start up a romance. And he is Native American. Her family does not agree with that, and there are a lot of trials and tribulations. I don't want to say too much because I feel like I will give stuff away, but overall this had absolutely beautiful writing. Like, if you want to read something where you're like, the writing is amazing, give this one a go. There's so many quotes in here right off the bat. Like, even in the first few chapters, I was like, wow, this writing is amazing. And there are some great character arcs in here. The woman, I was so invested in what happened with this woman. In the reading vlog, I do go into like the first half of it a little bit, but once I think it was like the 30 or 40% mark. Like, prior to that, I was kind of like, this isn't super unique. I mean, I felt like I had heard the story before, but then like after that point, something happens and something shifts to where I was like, okay, I need to know what happens with this woman. And I'm so glad I stuck with it and finished it, because the full story is really beautiful. And I said that it kind of has like the Steel Magnolias or like Forrest Gump effect, where, you know, the story is pretty standard of like, we're seeing, you know, people go through life and the challenges of life and how they overcome them. And it is sad, and I did cry, but in the end you feel really good and wholesome and uplifted, and that's what this book does. So if you're looking for something like that, where it does get a little bit deep, but in the end you are satisfied and happy, and it gives you those warm fuzzies, this is definitely that book for you. Also, I really like the Colorado atmosphere. I learned some things about Colorado that I did not know prior, and I just really ended up loving this character, and yeah, I cared about her a lot by the end of it. So definitely give this a go. Okay, next up we have Wayward by Amelia Hart, and this was the last book that I read this month. Well, last month. Now it's August 2nd now. Wayward is a multi-generational general fiction with a little bit of fantasy in there. We do have witches. Like, it basically follows 3 of these wayward women who are witches, and The first one we have Alpha. It's the 1600s, and she has been accused of being a witch and is on trial, and that's how her story starts. And then we have Violet, who I want to say was the 1940s or 1920s. It might even been earlier, but she does not know about her mom being a witch. Her mom has passed, and she is being raised in a household where her dad kind of sucks, and she has a brother, but they don't know anything really about their mom. And there's another male character in here that comes in her storyline, and it's very tragic. Trigger warning for SA, and it's a very dark story. Like, her story is super dark, and they're all dark. And then our last character we have is Kate, and it's like present day. She has no idea about anything about her ancestors really, but she is in a abusive relationship, and she finds out that she's pregnant, and she is finally leaving and running. And her great aunt Violet, who is the woman from the 1940s-ish, once she passed away a few years ago, she left her cottage to Kate. So Kate goes there because her husband Simon does not know. So that's where she flees. And while she's there, she like finds out more about her family, what's going on. And the story, there are a lot of dark, horrible things that happen to these women. And I think that's kind of the point. It's like intergenerational trauma and how that passes over, and you know how history repeats itself. It really is a story of them coming into themselves, empowering themselves, and moving on, building lives, and then finding out about their power and them being witches and coming into their witchcraft. And overall, I really enjoyed it. It was, I don't want to say it was cozy and wholesome, but because there are so many dark topics in here, a few like major trigger warnings here, for sure. And I was kind of shocked by that, honestly. I was shocked by how dark it got, but I really enjoyed following these women through their generations and seeing what happened with them and how they pulled through. And the witchcraft part of it was really great. This is an awesome spring summer read. This is the same kind of thing where we have like a witch's cottage and plants and botanicals and insects and animals that are really connect with these women because they are witches, and I love that aspect of it. Really, the only thing was that there were some parts of it that weren't really unique or different. Like, some of the parts of it I felt like I had heard before, but overall, a good read. I would definitely give it a go, especially spring summer. It's the perfect time. Also, it's like not a horror or scary movie, but it definitely has those spooky feels. So if you're looking for like something to intro into spooky season, definitely give this a go. I think it would be perfect for that. Like something that's perfect for spooky time, Halloween-y, but not horror per se. Okay, guess what time it is? It's just 4.5 star time, not 5 star yet. But I think I only have one 4.5 star. But the first 4.5 star we have is Star of Acre by Andrew Michael Hurley. I at first gave this 4 stars, I think, and as I sit with it, I upped it to 4.5 stars. I really love this book. I was kind of shocked by it, honestly. It's about a family who has lost their son, and it's really just them grappling with their grief and their loss and how to live life without their kid. So major trigger warnings there for those topics, but it's really haunting. We have the dad who has started digging in this field, and we're kind of wondering, is there something supernatural going on out here? Are they mentally unwell? Because it seems like there's something wrong with this field, and either the animals or the trees or something is going on here. And then we also have the mom who has turned to basically like seances and things, like trying to connect with her son. So there's also kind of like a haunting aspect to it. So it's a little bit haunting, supernatural. We're getting a lot of vibes from this. It has like a gothic feel, but it's very much like a folk horror. It's in, I want to say somewhere in the UK, out in rural fields and villages, and it's just them trying to deal with their grief. and some of the ways aren't great, and we're wondering, is there a haunting? What's going on here? And I say it's very much like Pet Sematary meets The Witch. It does get very strange. There is a switch that happens, and especially the end of it, I loved the ending. I think it was really smart and unique and different. And I do believe this is being made into a movie, and I'm so happy about it, because the whole time I was like, oh my gosh, this would be such a haunting movie. Like, just like the darkness of it, I can't even, it's kind of hard to explain. But as the month has gone on, I can't stop thinking about this book. It keeps coming into my head. I can't stop thinking about it. And so that's why I upped the rating on it. I would definitely give this a go. If you're wanting something spooky, I wouldn't say it's like super scary or anything like that. It's more just like the dark haunting aspect of it. And it does that very, very well. I'm a huge Pet Sematary fan, as well as The Witch. So if you ever watch those movies, it definitely has The Witch vibes, like 100%, that folky horror, almost a slow burn, but not really kind of feel to it, but where you're really wondering like what's going on here. Like, and overall, I really, really love this book. Give it a go if you're looking for a new horror to add to your list. It's also super atmospheric. My cat is messing with me. Okay, the atmosphere is great for summer into fall. Really recommend it. Give it a go. Hello, it's Victoria from the future. I actually read 19 books last month. I totally forgot one book, and that's Yellowface, and I can't believe I forgot it because it was one of my favorites. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang was so good. I gave it 4.5 stars. I do have a reading vlog where I go into it pretty deeply, but it's about a woman who is at her friend's house, and her friend passes away pretty tragically. Sorry, that's my dog running and growling. But her friend passes away, and her friend's a writer. They're both writers, but her friend has had a ton of success in the industry. Her friend is a pretty well-known writer. And when her friend passes away, she steals her friend's newest book. So the manuscript is out of her apartment. She steals it and takes it for herself, and basically lies and says that she wrote it. It's a very smart commentary on the world right now and race, and the satire is there. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's such a fun time. The whole time I was like, is this girl gonna get away with this? Like, how can she possibly get away with stealing this person's book and acting like totally racially ambiguous? Because she is white, and her friend that passed away, that she stole the book from, is Asian, and the book is literally about people in Asia. So I don't even know how she thought she would get away with this, but she like even kind of starts going by her middle name or like her nickname or something, because it sounds more like racially ambiguous, and just it's wild. There's something about this book that really threw me for a loop, and it's just fun. And the comedy is there. There's a little bit of like, I wouldn't say mystery, but you're like, some things happen, you're like, what's going on here? Who's doing this? And it's just a fun time. You should definitely give it a read. Very timely, written very well. R.F. Kuang is amazing, of course. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It will probably be in my tops of the year. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it. So it's a great one. So definitely put it on your list if you haven't already. I'm sure it probably is, because it's like everywhere. It's been very popular online, and everyone's been reading it. So you definitely should too. I agree with all those people. It's great. But anyway, back to the next picks. Okay, I do have another 4.5 star, and I'm so happy to say it was a 4.5 star, because I was really looking forward to this book. I do have this coming up in a reading vlog. It might already be up, I'm not sure, but it's The Only One Left by Riley Sager. He's always kind of hit or miss with me. Well, I wouldn't say hit or miss. At least, like, he typically gets at least a 3 star for me, but this is definitely my favorite of his that I've read so far. Would I say that it's like scary horror? No, I wouldn't say it's like super scary. But oh my gosh, I absolutely love the atmosphere of this. The story was great. It had amazing twists. Basically, we have a woman who is a caregiver, and the only job that they'll give her is at this woman's house, who previously she was accused, and everyone believes that she murdered her whole family, basically. Very much like Lizzie Borden, like murdered her mom, dad, sister scenario. And as this caregiver goes to take care of this woman and basically live in this house, it's a mansion. It's on the coast, right on a cliff on the coast in the Northeast, and it's a huge mansion. I'm gonna say there was like 136 rooms or something. I think that's what it said, how many there were, and I was like, oh my gosh. But the atmosphere alone in this, you should just read it for the atmosphere alone. I was obsessed with the gothic, spooky mansion feeling of this. I loved it so much, and it was just written so well, and I just loved the spooky vibes that this mansion gave off. And you know, at the beginning we're kind of like, is there a haunting? What's going on? Who's really to blame for these murders? Is this woman that she's taking care of a horrible human that murdered her whole family, or did someone else murder them? And the mystery there is really good. I really enjoyed it. It was fast-paced. I was invested the whole time, and there's so many twists. The twists on twists on twists. Were some of them kind of cliche and tropey? Yeah, but there were also some that were like really good. And some of them I kind of figured out, but you know, I was still like satisfied when they happened. So overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I loved the setting of it. It's my favorite kind of setting, and it's very much like Crimson Peak vibes. Like we're on a, sorry, my pets are unwell. They're going after each other. But it's very much Crimson Peak vibes, where you're in this like old gothic mansion. Like it's kind of like decrepit. It's not what you had anticipated when you were thinking of like a mansion, a beautiful mansion by this rich family. And it's kind of like falling apart kind of thing, really on its last leg, especially in this house. It's on a cliff, and this cliff is kind of just like chipping away day by day. So I loved it. I loved it so much. If you're a fan of Crimson Peak, definitely give this a read, because Crimson Peak, the story isn't even my favorite. Like it's I mean, it's good. I like the story, but the atmosphere and just the way that everything looks, I absolutely love the movie so much for that alone. And this one, I love the story, but the atmosphere is like everything. So definitely give this a go. Way to go, Riley Sager. I'm so happy that this was a hit for me. And I feel like overall I've been hearing really good things about it. Also, there was nothing where the woman just made the stupid, like the dumbest decision. That's my issue with a lot of Riley Sager books, and it'll like knock it down a whole star, you know, level for me, because he often will make the women make these decisions that were just dumb. Like really, like no normal human would make this decision, and why are you making the women do this? And it's literally just to like progress the story on further, but in the dumbest way possible. And it's almost like a really easy way out, and that's my issue I have a lot of times with his books. So that didn't happen in this, and I'm very happy about that. So okie dokie. So now we have made it to the 5-star reads. We have a few. It was a great month. I had some really amazing reads this month. Some of these I did have in reading vlogs, so I won't go too in depth, but kicking off the 5 stars, the first one that I read this month that was a 5-star was Ghost of the Orphanage. It's a story of mysterious deaths, a conspiracy, a silence, and a search for justice. And this is by Christine Keneally. This is really sad nonfiction about orphanages in the 1900s, well, late 1800s, 1900s, and basically they mostly ended in the 1970s. But it's telling stories of real victims of these orphanages and how they endured so much abuse, all kinds of abuse. So major trigger warnings, because we're going into real stories, real things that happened to these people, from sexual, physical, mental, religious trauma, everything. But I think that these stories were so important to read about, and it's just wild how these institutions, which were mainly Catholic, got away with so much, and continue to get away with it. And even in the 90s, they came out with their story, and people just wouldn't believe them. And of course, now things have changed a bit, because we have learned and things have been exposed about the church to the point where it's common knowledge that the church has done these horrible things. So it's just basically about them getting their story out, what happened to them. It also goes into like the legal aspects that they've gone through in the 90s and up to today, and really just these people trying to get justice. It's haunting, it's sad, it's deep. I cried multiple times just because it was so the things that some of these people were put through was just so horrible. And also just the fact that we won't ever know most of these stories, because a lot of these people had passed by the time people were coming out about it, you know? It also like goes into how they didn't realize what they were enduring was bad. Like they just thought that was life and was normal, and it took them a long time and hearing other people's stories to be like, wow, yeah, that happened to me. I didn't know that that was bad. And just them coming to terms with what they have been put through. And it's rough. It's a hard story to read, but it was very eye-opening, and I'm really glad I read it. Definitely 5 stars for me. If you're in the right headspace, I would 100% recommend it, especially if you are interested in adding more nonfiction. Like this is the kind of nonfiction where it's like, it doesn't feel like you're reading nonfiction, but it makes it all the more haunting that it is a true story. So yeah, 5 stars. It's a rough one. Be prepared. That's all I gotta say, but it is a fantastic book. My next 5-star, and maybe one of my favorite books of the year, it might even be my favorite of the year, is Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. I can't believe how much I like this book. This is not my typical kind of book. I had heard great things from people, and like only great things really. So I was like, you know what, I'll add this to my list and I'll give it a go. And I read this during my like general lit fiction reading vlog. So if you want to see like more about me and going through reading it and my thoughts, definitely go check that out. But wow, I was shocked by it. And pretty much it's about this woman. She's from the States. She's from outside of New York, I believe, but she had a boyfriend when she was growing up who would SA her, and you know, there were years where she could not be with anyone else, and then she decided to kind of like claim and take hold of her sexuality and just started sleeping around with people, which that's one way to deal with it. And you know, for some people that's fine, for some people it's not the healthiest way. So that's usually what she's done when it comes to relationships. She doesn't have them. She just like has one night stands and kind of doesn't even try to be with anybody seriously until she meets this one person. And she falls in love very quickly with him, and he is not the best. He goes through, it goes into the beginning of their relationship, and I really enjoyed the story of them falling for each other and how everything started, but we quickly realize everything's not great. He's not great, and he might not be as invested in this as she is, or not in the right space to even be in a relationship kind of thing. And it's very much a story about relationships across the spectrum, friendships, platonic, you know, relationships, all the relationships, and how friendships can be, you know, more rich and rewarding, or just as rich and rewarding as a romantic relationship, which I really enjoyed. And it's kind of about trauma and her finding herself and understanding her worth. And as time goes on with this man, you know, some people might think that she's stupid or kind of pathetic, but she was in love with him and kind of blinded by love. So I really love the story, and it's just like she goes through this relationship and it's to a detriment to herself. Like truly, it is not good for her. Her mental health is not great. So it's just like the story of how she goes through this relationship, it breaks her, but her learning more about herself and coming out of it and realizing her worth and coming to terms with the trauma she's been through and really working through her own thing. So I loved it. I wept. I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful story. I was invested in what was going to happen with her, and I wanted her to be happy so badly. It's not a romance. If you read the synopsis of this book, you might think it's a romance. It's not. And the relationship in here does suck. But it's all about different kinds of relationships, how our relationship with ourself and self-love. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book. I loved it so much. I highly recommend it. I read it in one day. It was like, I could not put it down. It was fantastic. So I definitely recommend it. Please give this one a read. Okay, well, this video is probably going to be 10,000 years long, but I did read a lot of books this month, or last month in July, and I had a great time. I'm so excited for what August has to bring, and also spooky season. I will be reading mainly horror or spooky stuff for the next couple of months through Halloween. I only have a few books that are on my TBR that I know are just like general fiction. So mostly it will be spooky and horror, so please subscribe if you're interested in that. And I thank you so much for watching this far and watching my video and listening to me talk about some books that I read this month. If you are looking for more horror, spooky content, as well as just like general bookish content, please subscribe. It would also be great if you could like this video. I think that would help me a lot. And I can't wait for what next month brings. I do have a TBR up so for August, so please go give that a watch if you're interested in what I'm gonna read. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Also, Halloween decor is out, so go Halloween decor shopping. Do it. You need to do it. I'll be like the voice in your ear. Go to Home Goods. Go to Bath & Body Works. Go Halloween shopping. You deserve it. Treat yourself. That's what I say. Or even just go look. Like some days I'm like, I just need a little serotonin boost, and I'll just go to Home Goods to look at some Halloween stuff and see what they have, and if there's any of my holy grail items that I can find. I usually don't. They're usually all gone, but that's okay. But yeah, thank you again for watching. I really appreciate you, and please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, put them below, or recommendations, let me know. I hope you have a great day.